I'm Amber Mack, and I'm looking forward to moderating today's Fireside chat for Energy 2050. And my guest today is Nishant Kumar, who is Head of Global Mining Accounts at Infosys. Hi, Nishant.
I am well. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Let's start with mining's role in our global energy transition, the importance of critical minerals, and the requirement of responsible sourcing. How do these all fit together in terms of powering a greener future?
Amber, that's a great question. We know there is a significant urgency to act on energy transition globally across industries. And we also know that there is no energy transition without critical minerals. There is a significant amount of critical minerals today in upstream capacity that are available in Australia, in Chile, in Canada. But large bulk of known reserves today sit in the developing world. And it is very difficult to have a responsible sourcing mandate in these developing worlds with no guarantee behind child labor or labor exploitation. We see critical minerals then being looked at from a global sourcing perspective from the Americas, from Europe. But it is also not easy to do that in today's world. Not in my backyard or NIMBYism is preventing significant upstream capacities from not getting sanctioned in some of these geographies. So, and then if you look at the other side of the spectrum, which is China, we look at China trying to secure its own critical minerals for its own energy transition very well from some of these same economies. And they have invested significantly over a period of time. So it's sort of time for the Americas, Europe, the Western world to also do the same in some capacity. Or if there is significant capital availability today in the Western world, so utilizing that capital to exploit some of these upstream capacities in these geographies, improving the responsible sourcing pledges, that is a possibility. So that's about critical minerals, which are very important for energy transition overall. We are talking about copper, lithium, nickel, cobalt. All of them have large sourcing bases, like I said, in DRC, in Indonesia, and Mongolia, those sort of markets. But we also don't leave out steel making. Now, as the developing world expands, as the middle income expands, as urban migration expands, steel is going to become a very large portion of the demand for urbanization. And even today, at today's capacities, which is dipped down from pre-pandemic times, we see steel making contributing to about 5 to 7% of global carbon emissions. And unless we form a pathway into green steel, it becomes extremely challenging for energy transition to happen with lower carbon emissions. So scope 1, 2 reductions in steel making, scope 3 reductions from mining in these operations is an extremely important mandate. So there is a lot that mining is doing towards this energy transition piece.
It is also true that modern mining requires a lot of new technologies. I've certainly seen this firsthand as someone who's gone deep underground into a mine. When we think about modern mining and technologies, what role do digital partners play?
It's a great question, Amber. I think, like we spoke this now, there are two clear mandates when it comes to critical minerals and minerals from an energy transition perspective. And if you look at the two clear mandates in front of us, there is capacity expansion, which is one mandate, and the other is to sort of look at rebirth of existing mining assets to perform better, higher productivity, higher safety, more inclusion. Now, if we touch on the first aspect, capacity expansion, the digital partners play a crucial role across the value chain. We start with exploration. Today, in most of the exploration, mandates across the world, large part of generative AI has been infused into the value chain, and that has improved the time required in the value chain by, in some cases, 1/5 or 1/10 of the original time that we used to take. So exploration acceleration is one very critical area, and that feeds into the proved reserves for the future demand. The next is greenfield mining capacities which have been approved, and there is this concept that we call born digital. Today's mines are not the same as the ones that in your and our times or our parents' times we used to see in the mining industry. Today's mining doesn't need a man to come in, only a 200-pound male to be, or more heavier and stronger men to come in. Most of these industries are heavily automated. They are significantly higher in safety structures. They are significantly better in productivity. And that is what we call today's born digital mines. So having born digital mines sanctioned, approved, and brought online very quickly is a very strong digital mandate that digital partners carry. And then there are these existing mines that are looking at digital rebirth, looking at existing capacities which are today extremely mechanical and manual, and automating those processes, automating the control systems, automating the machinery, automating and bringing newer network 5G, cloud, and AI into the landscapes to improve safety and productivity outcomes of these mines. That's where the digital partners are playing today.
It's also really interesting when we look at technology roles beyond automation and other examples of technology's role in mining. We also see technology play a role on that path to sustainability. Can you talk a little further about some examples of this?
Just steel making industry has a carbon footprint globally of between 5 to 7%. And it's to that we add the newer demand of copper, lithium, nickel, which has just gone through the roof over the last half a decade. That itself contributes to about 8 to 9% of the total carbon emission in the world, and that's a very large number. Now we still have a large capacity in coal-fired thermal power plants, and if you add that as a scope 3 emission of mining, that too contributes to about 20 or 25%. So there's a very strong, large base of scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions that originates in the mining industry. Having green steel from changing the blast furnaces to move from met coal into something like blue hydrogen or green hydrogen, that is an initiative that has a large digital footprint. There's a digital component to how these initiatives get done. Likewise, there is similar exploitation of how industries like in Indonesia, Morowali is looking at moving from their existing processing facilities to greener processing facilities using digital initiatives, and that is how digital is contributing towards scope 3 and scope 1 and 2 emission reductions.
One of the challenges that we continue to face in modern mining is talent shortages. There are so many exciting things happening when it comes to emerging technologies being used in mining, sustainability efforts, things that would really attract the next generation. And yet, I think we both know that it's difficult to attract Gen Z to this industry. What more can be done?
Great you say that. I have 2 daughters, 9 and 7, and they see me go into mining. They've been seeing me work in the mining industry for the last 15 years, and I don't see the same level of enthusiasm and interest as I saw with my father or my grandfather. So it's a very different world, and great you put that there. It's not just Gen Z. We're also seeing the same aspect with gender diversity, for example. We don't see women participation increasing in the core mining roles naturally, when it should now with mechanical work going down. The contribution that we see making in this space in particular is Gen Z expects roles to become cooler, more tech, sharper from a value delivery perspective, and that is where technology comes in. First thing, we look at automatable, repeatable tasks moving away from mining into outsourcing and offshoring locations where they can be automated now much faster with generative AI, significantly faster automation. So we sort of do away with those mundane, repeatable tasks. And then we focus on core mining activities. Now, these core mining activities are, getting reborn digital. So if you look at today's training facilities of apprentices, these are AR, VR equipped. Some of these apprentices come in and look at operating machines that are completely available in an AR, VR world today, and they can operate it not just inside the mines, but from control rooms and integrated remote operation centers hundreds of miles away. And they're also tech workers. When they operate these mines, they write Python code, and they look at some of the health parameters of the machines on their interfaces. And this is Gen Z. This is the cooler way of them looking at the same jobs that their parents and grandparents used to do, but in a newer way. And that is obviously bringing some of this aspect in. From a gender diversity perspective, what we are trying to do is looking at more automation in the machines, in the operating interfaces, and in the operating environments. And more automation means more safety. More safety it means obviously also more inclusion. The same need for strong and big men, doing some of these mechanical tasks inside mining has gone away. Now, I know personally some of the biggest machines in the Pilbara, in Chile, in Canada, being operated by women. And that's, sort of a big improvement. And that's what Gen Z looks at, how forward-looking is this industry.
Nishant, thank you so much for having this conversation for Energy 2050 and discussing the future of modern mining. Thanks so much for the conversation.
Thanks, Amber. Great to be here. Thank you.